Hello, people. Welcome to Mainevent Boxing Talk. This is podcast number 3. I'm back with my co-host, Mr. Tom Mandela. How are you, Tom?
I'm doing well, Nathan. How are you?
I'm fine, my friend.
Excellent.
Let's discuss some of the weekend's action. We're going to talk about the Rigondeaux fight. This was for the vacant WBA bantamweight regular title, whereas the main title is held by Inoue himself. Rigondeaux won via a split decision against Liberal Solis. What did you think of this performance?
I thought it was pretty good. I think it was a great idea for him to go down in weight. He always did well at the lighter weights, and he dropped down and he looked good. He actually retained some power. And I don't know why it was a split decision. I thought he was dominating him most of the fight, but, you know, that's the way the judges saw it, and he got the win. So all's well that ends well for him. But he's 39, you know, for a guy who's 39, he still looks good.
I mean, there's no disputing that. I mean, a lot of people will always mention the Lomachenko fight, but which is unfair. You know, this guy, he went at 3 weights for that fight. And he's obviously dropped down from featherweight to, from super featherweight.
Bantamweight. Yeah, that's right.
Down to bantamweight. So he's gone down like 2 weights. 180 pounds. It's pretty impressive that he can still get down to that weight at his age and put on that sort of performance.
Well, I think it's his natural weight. I thought he was just, Lomachenko's not a big guy either, but when you saw the two of them in the ring, he looked small, didn't he?
Oh, very small, yeah.
Yeah, so it's a good move for him to go down, I believe. And I think he can still be dominant there for a while and not have to worry about, big shootouts with anybody like Lomachenko or anybody else, in that division, in the upper division in the super featherweight. That's what is that? Super featherweight. Featherweight is 126, so super featherweight would be 130. So he's actually dropping 22 pounds.
So like 3 weights. Is it 3 weights then?
Yeah, he's gone down to, 1, 2, down 3.
But when he went up to super feather, he looked odd that way. He didn't look right. And he
was at 130. He was 22 pounds heavier.
But do you blame him? I mean, I don't blame him for taking the money fights. You know, he did what he had to do at this late stage of his career. Obviously, when you're Cuban, you're amateur a long time, and boxing's banned in Cuban professional boxing. So he did the right thing.
I think so, and I think he was out of the professional ranks for so many years until he could get here, that I don't blame him for taking that fight. But Lomachenko was just too much for him, too big and too fast, too many angles, and really I think it had a lot to do with the size. So he's come back with 3 wins, a KO, a TKO, and now
and he's a world champion again, vacant belt. So he's back at the weight he should have stayed all along. But hey, he had to make his money, Right, we'll move on.
Yes.
Russell Jr., Gary Allen Russell Jr. defeats Tug Spiot Nyamyaba, a guy from Thailand.
Good try. That's a good try.
I think this was the 4th defence of his featherweight world title. Good performance by him. He's a great fighter. He needs unification.
He does. He just hasn't been fighting enough, and I don't know if that's his problem or is his promoter's problem, or ever since he lost to Lomachenko, that was his only loss, I believe, was Lomachenko, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And he hasn't really, he's dominated the division he's in, the titles that he's in, but he needs to fight a little bit more.
He's not a ticket seller, is he? Let's be honest. The guy's not a ticket seller. He's very talented, but he's just not a ticket seller.
That's true.
His style isn't the most attractive to watch.
He's an excellent boxer, and
he's not fan friendly. No, not fan friendly.
Just like Rigondeaux, if you could compare those two.
Yeah.
Because they're both excellent boxers, and they're both southpaws. So not a lot of people want to fight an excellent boxer who's a southpaw.
a lot
But
of
he's
fans
not a-
don't want to watch people like Rigondeaux. The casuals don't want to watch that. They want to watch the Josh Warringtons, people like that. People who've got action. People want to see action. People want to be
well,
entertained.
like
You know,
for instance, like Teofilo Lopez, right? He's a
great.
banger. He bangs guys out of there. It's dramatic. These guys are surgeons. They take you apart and they make you, they make you look bad. They're not these like, big bangers like a Mike Tyson was. Those are the guys that really get the attention.
The ticket sellers. People, you really have to be a hardcore fan to appreciate these guys that they're up. I mean,
Yes.
I'm a casual fan. I'm not a hardcore fan in the slightest. If you're a hardcore fan, casuals don't want to see them.
No, they
You know,
don't. That's absolutely true.
right. We'll move on to our next card. Kid Galahad beat Claudio Moreno. Did you watch this fight, Kid Galahad? He won in 8 rounds.
I didn't get to this one, but I could look at it right now.
You don't have to look at it, but from what I saw of like Kid Galahad, this was an IBF eliminator. So Kid Galahad is basically in line to fight Josh Warrington, but we'll come to him shortly. So basically, with the way things are going, obviously Josh Warrington is going for a promotional change, la-di-da-di-da, and he's too big to be a featherweight, so he'll probably move to featherweight, then this belt will become vacant,
Yes, there's a lot going on with Warrington now too, isn't he? Changing? Didn't he sign with the zone?
We'll come to that. But so for Kid Galahad, he'll probably get a vacant title shot very soon.
Right.
I think it's wrong that you can lose a title shot, win one fight, and get back into contention. I don't agree with that. I believe if you lose a fight, you should go down the rankings, a little bit.
It depends on the contract, and it depends on how good the fight was. Because if the fight's a real scorcher, then what's going to happen is that, as in the case of several fights that have been great fights, what happens is people want to see it. There's a rematch clause, and if they could exercise that clause, then I don't have a problem with it. Or if there was a problem, there was a controversial call and it was stopped when it shouldn't have been stopped or something like that, then, some of the fans, it has to do with the demand, really.
Okay. We'll move on. Our next fight we're going to talk about is Dave Allen against Dorian Dutch. Did you see this fight?
I saw the highlight of the knockout, but people are saying there's some investigation into some gambling in this fight.
There
right?
is. But to me, watching the fight, he won that fight fair and square. I don't think there's any point of taking it further. I mean, Dorian Dutch, Dave Allen is a journeyman. I don't think people should even suspect this, crazy. But in terms of performance, the first round he didn't look like he was trying. The second round he started to go a bit more forward. Then the third round he took him out with a body shot. Dave Allen's best signature shot is a body shot. But
yeah, well, it may not have anything to do with Dave Allen. It could be that the other guy was bought out. Usually, sometimes the guy who's taking the dive knows it, and the guy who's going to win doesn't know it. You follow?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, because sometimes that can happen.
Someone like Dave Allen gets as much attention he does kind of amazes me, to be honest.
He's a big guy, and he's over there in the UK. And so, he's in the mix there. And people like to see fights over there. And I like to see him too. So, I like him, his life has been good.
But what I'm saying is he has limitations. Limitations that only reaches to, he's barely British level. We have to say it like it is. I'm a fan of his, but, Right, we'll move on. Terry Harper beats Eva Wallström to unify the IBO and WBC belts. Super good performance by her. She did enough from what I saw.
Well, it was a good boxing match. Let's put it that way. The girls, the females, sometimes I enjoy watching them more than the guys because they really go for it. And they have 2-minute rounds. So their output is more. It's not as dramatic unless you're a big puncher, but I wonder with the gals, how they're going to fare down the line. We haven't had a lot of women's boxing. I mean, it's been around for a while, but I'd like to see, I want to make sure that they're not taking too much punishment. fighters can stay in there too long, but these lighter weights, as we discussed on previous shows, they take more shots, and that's more concussion.
Funny you should say that. In women's boxing, I've noticed a lot of the champions are in their early 40s or late 30s, a lot of the boxers.
Yeah, they got a late start. I mean, don't forget, there's not only until recently was there an amateur. What was it, the past 8 years, the past two Olympics, we had women's boxing in the Olympics. So a lot of these gals, they start late. They don't even have an amateur career.
Which is more dangerous. I think if you start later, it's more dangerous.
Depends. It depends, but yeah. When you're starting in your 30s, yeah, I think so. Your reflexes are slower.
Right.
You can't block as many shots.
Let's move on to the Kell Brook Mark DeLuca fight. This was for the WBO Intercontinental 154 title. Obviously, Kell Brook gets a ranking from this. Mark DeLuca is a club fighter. He's very tough, very durable. But I felt Kell had him down in the third. Kell could have had him out of there in the 4 rounds if he'd really pressed him. And I thought the stoppage was later than what I'd liked. I thought he could have had him out of there earlier. I was, considering he'd been out 40 months, it wasn't a bad performance. What do you think?
Well, DeLuca is a banger. He's a very strong guy and not as fast as Kell and not the same pedigree, but he was durable and a very strong puncher. And a couple of times I thought he hurt Kell to the body. But then Kell's boxing IQ came in and he started out boxing him, and then he started pushing his power into him. I don't think Kell is completely washed up yet. I think all in all, it was a good tune-up for him. I think he's waited too long for Amir Khan and a couple of other fights to materialize. I think he needs to take maybe 1 or 2 more and then take a shot at the 154 title with one of the titles.
To put this into perspective, right, and this is going to scare you, he fought Errol Spence more or less 3 years ago, and in that 3 years, he's only fought 3 times. Obviously, he had serious eye injuries, I think where his career went wrong was when he fought Triple G and Spence. That's where his career went wrong. He didn't have to take those fights. I believe that if he didn't take those fights, he would have gone on and won a belt at 154 a long time ago. I'm talking like 3 years ago. I believe. I also believe that an Amir Khan fight will never ever happen. And Liam Smith was waiting in the wings. He wants to fight him next. I believe that Liam Smith has been the younger and fresher man by 3 years and not having as much punishment as Brook has taken in the last couple of fights. I believe he's young enough and fresh enough to take advantage of Kell's deterioration. He's good enough to beat him.
Well, first of all, I agree with you that he shouldn't have fought GGG. I think that he was having trouble making the 147 weight, and that's why he went up to fight him. And also, it was a good payday for him.
Good payday. I don't blame him. You can't begrudge a boxer a payday. But he should have, he should. I believe he was due to fight Jesse Vargas. Jesse Vargas signed the contract. Kell didn't. It's only because Chris Eubank Jr. stepped out of that. So for me, we're looking at a guy who's had probably the best years of his career taken away from him due to injuries that weren't his fault. Did you see what I mean? So he's robbed.
Yes.
It's like we've been robbed of his prime.
Yeah, I've always been a fan of Kell's. And he showed, he showed some ring rust, a little bit of ring rust in the opening rounds, but then he started to put his combinations together. He started to pick them apart. Yeah. I think he's still competitive. I think he has a great boxing pedigree, but I agree with you. He's on the downslide. So
he could easily win a title at 154 if the title's vacant or it's against a second-tier guy.
Yeah,
he could do it if it's against the Miller.
I don't think he would do well against Charlo. I think Charlo.
No, but I'm talking about people the level below. So if he's in the WBO rankings and the guy who holds that title vacates it, he could then, fight someone further down the rankings, like number 10 in the rankings, the lowest, one of the lowest ranked sort of guy, tier guy.
Right. Yeah, I agree with you. I was a fan of his. I thought he had a lot of guts moving up to fight GGG, and he got his eye busted in that first round, and he had a lot of guts to stand up to him, and he did do well here and there against Spence, and then of course we had the injury. So you're right. His best years are behind him,
But
and those injuries
to
have
be
hurt.
fair, Michael Zarafa, these are guys, like Michael Zarafa's tough, but he should be putting guys like that away. And he should have, the old Kelbrook would have beaten this guy in 2 or 3 rounds.
Well, it depends on how much he's willing to put out on the line now. I'm sure
I'm not sure how much his eye can step up. If he's fighting this level of opposition till his career finishes, that's fine. But I don't think it would be any wiser for him to go up to the level he was at. He hasn't got it anymore.
Yeah, I'm going to agree with you on that. Judging by this fight, judging by what he did in this fight, yeah, he would do well to not push it all the way up to the top.
Fighters don't like to hear this, do they? Don't like to hear talk of the truth. They don't like to hear it, as you know from
That's true, but another thing too that you have to consider is that a guy with his skills can rise to the occasion, but just through his own will.
But if he fights Liam Smith on paper, he should have too much for Liam Smith. But if he does win,
right.
he will only just do it, I believe.
Yeah.
Got enough in his tank to just be better than him. Right, we'll move on. Sorry, carry on. Carry on.
No, I agree with you. We're good. Let's go.
Okay. Over the weekend, Anthony Yard had a fight in Spain against a guy called Diego Jair Ramirez. He's ranked 538 in the rankings. This took I watched the fight. Did you see the fight?
I watched the fight too.
Oh, right. Basically, it was in like a club, like in like a beer tent sort of thing. Oh, it's very low key, very low rent. This guy, Colombian, he has 48 losses and 4 wins and 3 draws. So basically, Yard in the WBO rankings, you can't fight a title eliminator or fight for a vacant title unless you have a win under your belt. Liam Smith did this about 3 or 4 years ago. So basically, the idea behind this fight is basically Yard has obviously been out of the ring for 5-6 months, or however long it is. And also, there's a tournament going to be for the vacant WBO light heavyweight belt. So if one of the guys steps out of that, he will then jump straight into an eliminator.
Well, there you go. You called it like it is.
So tell us about this fight, because this was hilarious. Oh, dear.
Well, you're right. It was hilarious. He was chasing him around the ring. The guy was giving him angles. He was trying to stay out of his way. But with every hard blow he landed, it wasn't going to last more than a round or two. It was just no way. It was, I was going, why are they fighting there? What is this? This was crazy. It just didn't make any sense to me.
When you've been out of the ring, sometimes this is common practice in some fighters. Some fighters, Anthony Joshua, say if he lost, he might do something like this. You don't know. Could anyone do different?
Well, yeah, but Anthony, with a name like Anthony Joshua, he can't fly under the radar like this.
No, but Yard can.
Flying under the radar.
But I didn't hear about this fight 2 days before it happened. That's when I heard somebody broke the news. I was shocked.
Yeah.
But this was a confidence booster after obviously the loss he had. I could understand it. He made a good account of himself, and I believe if he fights the right person, he can win a world title. But it has to be against the right person. You have to match Anthony Yard carefully, don't you? Do you agree?
I agree. He's not the greatest boxer, and we saw that when he lost, right?
And he doesn't have great stamina. So he needs someone in there that's only going to be able to last 7-8 rounds so he can blast him up. But if you put, Kovalov, that was a faded Kovalov, a really faded Kovalov.
Yes. But that was a Kovalev who had better boxing skills than he did. That's what my point is. Yeah. So, he's a power guy. He likes to go and throw power punches and knock people out. And then, he can get tired. He couldn't keep that up against Kovalev the whole 12 rounds. So he's got to work on his stamina and he's got to work on his speed, and he's got to work on those other things besides just power, because that's not going to win him every fight. And we've seen that throughout history. You know, when Mike Tyson started relying only on his power, that's when he started to lose.
I must make the case this fight only had 2 fights on the card, so it would have been a very short card.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I would ask for my money back if I paid to watch that.
Let me just answer this very quickly. So anyway, yeah, I felt the whole thing was hilarious, you know. You couldn't make it up. It looked like something like Spider Rico against Rocky.
Yeah, that's right.
Right, let me see what else is next. What else is next? What have we got next on this? Keep going. It's been announced that Daniel Dubois will be fighting Joe Joyce. The fight's been confirmed on Saturday, 11th of April at the O2 Arena, Greenwich, London, and it is for the British heavyweight title. I'm glad they finally made this fight. I'm looking.
Me too. Yes. So am I. I mean, we talked about this.
What Dubois is made of. Right, we won't talk anymore because the last podcast we discussed it enough. So let me see what else is next on our list.
Well, we got Kovalev moving up to cruiserweight.
Good, I like it.
Yeah, I have a little bit of a concern about that because McGirt only wants him to get up to 185. That's the fight. That's the weight he wants to fight. He says that he could beat most of those top guys in there at 185 just by boxing them. But he will be the lighter guy in these things. He looked so drained against Canelo in his last fight, didn't he?
Oh, yes, he looked like a starving child. You know, he's killing himself to make the weight. He's been killing himself to make the weight since he won the title back before he fought Alvarez. A year and a half.
Right. Yeah.
You know, when he lost to Ward, he should have moved up there. That's what I do.
You mean the first or the second?
After the second. Should have moved up after that.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I think, I don't know. I don't know how weak his chin is. Maybe it's not his chin so much as the fact that he's drained going into the fight. I didn't expect Canelo to be knocking him out that easily. But, you know, he got knocked out. So he's going to be fighting against guys that have more power. So we'll have to see if it's a weight or the chin or a combination of both. And we'll see how his stamina and how his strength looks. I'm a little concerned. I don't know how many more fights he has, to be honest with you, moving up.
I'm looking
if he loses his first fight, he should retire.
Right. He should. But I believe he's got one more title in him. And then there's a lot of likelihood he could do it. I'll tell you for why. The cruiserweight division is not as talented as it was. It's not as stacked as it was. McCarby, I believe he's good enough to beat McCarby, the WBC champion. I
think so. Yeah, I think so. I think you're right.
I liken his move to when Tony Bellew went up from light heavyweight to cruiserweight. He was more effective.
There you go. Good example.
So I think that, but the Dorticas and people like that, you should stay away from. But there is a guy called Bibet Shumenev, who is the WBA regular champion. He's only defended that belt. I don't think he's defended that belt in the last year since he's been given it. That's one guy he could definitely beat because Bibet Shumenev has no power.
I've seen him fight. You're right. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Yeah, so he could win a title. You know, he can make maybe 3 more fights he could push out and win, and he'll be in good shape to retire.
But if that's good enough, I mean, him and Manuel Charr would be a funny fight.
Oh my God, no. Hell no. Hell no.
Surely he could beat Charr.
Charr is a running joke, man.
Oh, I know he is, yes. Right, let me see what we got next on the list. David Avanasian
wants Davis, man.
David Avanasian will be fighting Josh Kelly on March 28th. This is for the European title. This is a good fight for Josh Kelly.
I agree. This will be a very good fight. And I look forward to seeing it. Both of these guys can, you know, they're both good. And I think that I'm tuning in on this one.
We have to be fair to Josh Kelly. He's only had 10 fights, and yet he's beaten some good people already, like Carlos Molina. He got a draw with Ray Robinson, In your 8th fight, you can't really, moan a draw, can you? Because he went up in class, significant when he fought Ray Robinson.
True, that's the truth. But I think all in all, it's going to be a very good fight, and it's one that we should look out for, and we'll talk about it later when it happens.
If I'm being honest, it's a fight I think Josh Taylor's good enough to get the win here. If he wins this, it puts him on the world stage, and he's not that far away from world title shot if he wins this. Eddie Hearn wouldn't have made this fight if he didn't think, he had a chance.
Yes, that's true. It's true. I think all in all, it's going to be a very, very entertaining bout.
But I think Avanasian's last 3 wins have kind of over-exaggerated his ability a little bit. Remember, he's the same guy that lost to Lamont Peterson 3 years ago. He's the same guy that lost to Kavalaskis. Ray Robinson got a draw with Kavalaskis. So I'm thinking Josh Kelly, I think he's got a bit more class than Avanasian. Would you agree or not?
I would say so. He doesn't have as much experience as Avanasian.
No.
But Josh Kelly, I think, is a better boxer, and I like the way he boxes. I like the way he moves. Avanasian has more experience, but neither one of them are huge punchers.
No.
So
Josh Kelly has more determination than Avanasian. Avanasian, when he beat Kerman Lajara, I don't know how he did it, because that guy had been beating up fighters for a long time. Got a few good wins. Lajara was built as like this unstoppable object. Do you remember?
Yeah. But I do remember. But I like this fight. I think when is it due? It's coming up when? Let's see. When is it? March 28th. So it's next month. I like it. Good. Sounds good to me.
Next in our news, Joe Joyce has split with his trainer Adam Booth, and he's gone back to the same trainer he had when he was under the management of David Haye. The Cuban guy.
I think he did that. Why do you think he did that?
I reckon he did that because I've forgotten his name. Salas.
The trainer? Salas, yeah. Ismael Salas.
The reason he went back to him was because Salas was a familiar voice in his head, and they had a good rapport. He had about 5 or 6 fights with him. They had a good rapport. They'd worked together well enough. But when Joe worked with him, Joe had had better movement in his feet. And Joe, since when he fought Jennings, he put on about 15 pounds of muscle. And when he's fighting at 240, he's more effective than when he's fighting at 260. I think this could be the difference between him, winning this fight.
I remember when he made the switch and why he made the switch, and him going back to Salas. Do you think it has anything to do with money?
Yeah.
I mean, probably, right? But maybe he felt he couldn't learn anything else from this guy, that he's leaving. So
yeah.
I mean, Abel and Booth did a good job with him, but it doesn't look like they really
style of boxing. I don't think they're right
his body,
I think Joe Joyce has to really trust someone, I think with Joe Joyce, he has to feel comfortable. That's why he's had so many trainers. Right,
Well, I'm looking forward to this. I'm going to go with Joyce on this. What do you think?
I'm going to have to, only based on experience. But I think in the history books we'll look back and Dubai will do something. He will go on and have a great career even if he loses this one. He'll go on and have a great career.
I hope so.
All right, let's move on to Josh Warrington. The IBF featherweight champion has split with Queensberry Promotions of Frank Warren and has rejoined Matchroom after 3 years away. 2 years ago. I think this is a brilliant move. What do you think?
Yes, I agree. I definitely agree with you. He's going to make more money this way.
I don't think Frank Warren had the capital to keep him happy.
No, no, he didn't. He did not. And I think it's a good business move for him. You know, you have to do what's best for you. I mean, I know sometimes you form allegiances in the business, but really what it comes down is money. It comes down to
There
money.
should be no loyalty in boxing. You know, it shouldn't exist in
Well,
boxing.
you could have loyalty with your trainer, right? But when it
Not your
and as long as you guys, as long as the trainer and the boxer, you know, they're sincerely working on making, you know, of getting better and whatnot, and don't make money the biggest issue in it. But when it comes down to who's promoting you, that's a whole other story. You got to go with the guy who's going to get you the most bang for the buck.
Okay, we'll move on. Daniel Dubois signed a 5-year contract with Frank Warren. I don't know who advised this kid. Crazy.
Yeah, that's what's Warren going to do for this guy?
Nothing. I mean, to be fair, he's done a great job with him so far. But I think to go to the next level, he needs to have left Frank Warren and signed with an Eddie Hearn or someone else. You know, someone that can give him the capital. Problem, like I say again, Frank Warren is like a kid in a sweetie shop. Yet Eddie Hearn's got all the money. You know.
Yeah. Well, I got to agree with this. I don't know if this was in his best interest. We're going to have to see what Frank Warren can do for him. But the main thing is that he's got to win this fight, you know, with Joyce. If he wins it in a dramatic fashion, which I don't think he will, but if he does, and then you know, Warren could really negotiate on his behalf and represent him well. But Warren has not been doing well lately, from what I've been reading over the past year.
He's been struggling. He's just come out of a bankruptcy.
Yeah, so there you go. And Eddie Hearn seems to be having all the big things happening, you know.
It's what happens when you have the most money. Or the most money. Right.
That's right.
Next in news, Oscar Rivas has made a promotional pact with Top Rank.
Well, I think that's a good idea.
Yeah. I think Oscar Rivas is going to be used as an opponent. They're not going to build him into a star. You know, he's not a ticket seller. The guy couldn't barely speak English. I think he's just going to be an opponent for someone like a Jarrell Miller.
Well, you know, I'm happy that he's in the mix of things. You know, that Rivas is, because there's a lot of guys that can match with him. He's strong. He's fairly, you know, he's fairly young. He's not too old, and he's got good power, and he's not afraid. I mean, didn't he lose to White? That was his only loss, right?
Yeah. But he only narrowly lost. He only barely lost.
Yeah, and he was doing well in that fight. So, you know, he can definitely, in terms of being an opponent, we need guys like him in the heavyweight division that have power, that are determined, that are strong, that are aggressive, because they make good fights. You know, you look at him and you put him in with some of the other, you know, top contenders, like the big Polish guy that's fighting soon. You know, and those guys, he's fighting Helenius. What's his name? I forget his name. Yeah, you know, these are good guys. When you look back at the time when Tyson, you know, in the wake of Ali, and then Tyson coming up, you know, you had guys like Witherspoon, Pinklin Thomas, Bone Crusher Smith. You had a lot of guys like this around, and if they weren't fighting for the title, they were fighting each other, and it was entertaining. It was good.
I think Rivas is a sort of fighter. No, who wants to fight a man like him? Someone who comes forward and doesn't give up. You know, he's not on top of anyone's list. He's awkward. Look how, I mean, he even put White down on his ass in the 9th round. It was, you know, good performance for him.
Yeah. So I like the fact that, you know, I think Bob Arum will hook him up with a couple of good fights. I think it's a great idea. And he's rated, you know, number 3 by the WBC, so he's going to have to fight those guys.
He didn't beat anyone to get there. It's the only reason he's getting this opportunity is because of how well he fought against White. You know, nearly beating him. But you know,
yeah, I understand what you're saying.
He's like an Ernie Shavers, isn't he, of this era?
Yeah.
About the pound.
And look how entertaining it was to watch Ernie Shavers during his time.
Oh, very good fight. Especially the fight against Ken Norton.
Well, did you see him fight Quarry? Quarry knocked him out. Did you see that one?
No.
Oh, man, I got to send you that one. That's a great fight.
Unfortunately, my boxing knowledge from the 70s and 80s only goes as far as Muhammad Ali, Larry Holmes, and, a couple of, that's really about it. And that Mexican guy who died, what was his name? The Mexican guy who died in 82, is it Salvador Sanchez? That's about all my knowledge of the past.
Yes. I'm going to send you the fight, or I'll put it up on the website so you can watch it and other people can see it.
Okay. Right, we'll move on to it. Your good friends at the WBC have decided to make all regional title fights to now be 10 rounds.
I think it's a good idea. What do you think?
I think this should be the way forward for all other organisations. The WBC do lead the way in innovation.
Well, I think that they're looking at look, when we had 15-round fights, the 12-round fights were the eliminator fights for the title. What?
15 rounds was too dangerous, in my opinion. It's too much.
Yes, but we had 12-round fights as title eliminator fights. In other words, the number 1 and 2 contender fought each other at 12 rounds, and then they were able to fight for the champion for 15 rounds.
What year?
That's the way it was.
Was it 87, 89 they abolished 15-round fights, weren't it? Or was it 88? I can't remember.
It was somewhere in the 80s. It was around before the time that Sugar Ray Leonard fought Marvin Hagler. They went to 12 rounds.
That was 12. So
that was 12. They beat it at 12 rounds. If it would have won 15, Leonard would have lost.
Yeah. Do you think that this should be the way forward for all title fights? Every fight should be 10 rounds, even world title fights.
Well, the WBC, my friends at the WBC, Jill and Mauricio, they are concerned about the fighters' health, and they take a very hard position on VADA testing, making sure these guys are clean. So they liaise a lot with Dr. Goodman on a lot of boxing research and a lot of boxing statistics in terms of the medical side of it. So them going to 10 rounds in regional fights makes sense. And I would like to see, just 10-round fights to be the title eliminator fight, and then only the 12-round fights be for the title. That makes more sense to me, and you're going to see more action in the 10-round fight. Plus, it's safer for the fighters. I just if you've never fought before, just try to go 1 round on a heavy bag, full out. Just go 1 round, and see what you feel like.
I wouldn't manage 1 round, so.
Yeah, and you're not getting hit, and you're not moving as much. When I was in shape, I could go 8 rounds on the heavy bag, and I would be good. I wouldn't get tired, right? And then I'd jump some rope. But I'm not getting hit, don't forget. So that's a whole other ball game, man. Getting hit weakens you just as hitting the heavy bag makes you tired. But if you get hit in the head, that weakens you. You get hit in the body, it weakens you. So that's another whole other level. So we talk about it casually as, it's 10 rounds or 12 rounds. Oh, man, you got to be in the best.
It's not meant to be. It's not come across as disrespectful. It doesn't mean to.
No, I didn't mean that you're disrespectful. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying is most people and most casual fans have no idea that the level of condition you have to be in. This sport requires the most condition, in my opinion, of any other sport.
More than MMA.
Because of what the human body is supposed to do. What?
A lot more than MMA.
MMA is a different training, That's why Floyd was able to drown Conor McGregor, But
the problem with MMA, the fighters don't look as fit as some of the top-level boxers. Like the top-level guys in UFC are not the same kind of fitness as the boxers.
They're doing a different training, Yeah. It's like somebody compared it to, it's a good comparison. MMA is like training to do sprints, while a boxing match is training to do a long-distance runner. You got to train like a long distance runner.
I mean,
And
I
that's what
hate
Floyd
it when
did.
the sports do cross promotional. I don't like it. See MMA fighters fight boxers. I think it's silly. That's just my opinion.
I don't like it as much as boxing because I like the fluidity of the motion with boxing, the footwork in the hands. MMA is different. If you go to the floor, then you got to look at the jiu-jitsu and the wrestling and how good they are there. If they're standing up, how their striking is, their kicks, and different things. There are different disciplines.
I think MMA, both sports are brutal.
Yes, that's true, but I think you probably get more head trauma in boxing than you do in MMA.
Okay, in sad news, Jimmy Thunder passed away on Monday. He's a former IBO and WBF heavyweight champion. Very sad.
Yes, I remember him fighting a lot, years ago back, was it the 90s? And I remember he had one of the quickest knockouts in heavyweight history. He walked out against this big guy and threw one punch, and this guy went totally cold. I mean, he was trembling, and he was a huge guy. It was 13 seconds, and I'll never forget that. And but as he stepped up, he started to get taken out by better boxers, and that was his thing. I mean, if he could get you out right away, that was good. But towards the end there, he lost to a couple of fighters that weren't very good, and he lost on a TKO to Monty Barrett, who was a good heavyweight. He beat Tim Witherspoon on a decision, and I was pretty surprised when that happened. And I don't know why it happened. Who knows? But he lost to Chris Bird by TKO, and Chris Bird wasn't that powerful a puncher.
No, he was a light heavyweight. I mean,
yeah, but he was a great boxer. And Maurice Harris, he lost by KO. So early on in his career, he was knocking almost everybody out. But he did. Mike Hunter back in 1990 did knock him out, early in his career. But he came back to win, and then he got TKO'd in the next match. And then
he even lost to Johnny Nelson, the great cruiserweight, British cruiserweight.
He lost to Henry Akinwande too.
Some big names from British boxing on his record. Right.
So he was one of those guys. He was real strong, and if he hit you, he could hurt you. But he was susceptible too. His defense wasn't the greatest, and he got hit occasionally, and he lost. He got taken out. So when you're a puncher like he was, and you're looking to bomb guys, you go wide with your punches sometimes, and then you get caught. Gotta be careful.
Okay, let's move on.
But it's a shame he died so young. It's a shame. He died of a brain tumor, and it's such a shame. We've been losing many boxers lately that are young, and I don't like it.
But to be fair, these boxers, they know the risk, what they're getting involved. They know it. No one's held a gun to their head to say you will do this. It's a way out. Boxing is a way out for people.
And I understand that. Yeah, I understand that. There's a great movie. I don't know if you've ever seen it. You could watch it on YouTube. It's called Requiem for a Heavyweight.
Is that with what's his name? The guy who plays the fake Jack Johnson. What's his name? James Earl Jones.
No, that was the story about Johnson. No, Requiem for a Heavyweight, I believe, had Anthony. It was a television show first, and it had a couple of great actors in it.
Is it 40s or 50s?
In the 50s, and then it was made into a movie, and Muhammad Ali is in it.
Oh, is that the one where he plays himself?
Yeah, and he knocks out the guy. What's his name? Anthony. What's his name? You know what? It's on you. It's on YouTube. You got to see it, man.
But before we move on, was it Ali made the film The Greatest, didn't he, where he played a younger version himself? Is that correct? Yeah.
Yes, but in Requiem for a Heavyweight, he also played himself as Cassius Clay.
Was this the 60s when he beat Liston, or the 70s? The film?
This was before he beat Liston.
Really? Is it in colour or black and white? I'll have to watch it.
It's in black and white, and a guy that I grew up with, the fighter who my godfather trained, who fought for the lightweight title, is in it. Paolo Rossi and some other guys. Fat Tony.
Can you send me both films in via the inbox when we're finished?
Yeah, I will. I'll send them to you. You can check them out.
Okay.
But
In
they're great. And
shocking, Sergio, the cripple Martinez, who's had a double knee replacement,
oh no,
he's going to return to boxing.
No, please say it isn't so. No.
Let me just quickly read the article, which was taken from Ring Magazine, which is actually owned by Golden Boy, so this is very, very biased writing. News reached the ring that former two-division champion Martinez will return to the ring in Madrid against an opponent to be confirmed. If he does come back, it has to be against somebody outside the top 200, so he can get a win, get out of the system and go back away. He does not need to be fighting.
No, and he shouldn't fight. And I mean, his legs were shot. After that, after he fought Chavez Jr., he blew out his legs so bad. I thought Martin Murray beat him in Argentina.
Well, same here.
I thought he lost to Murray, but Murray fought 4 great rounds and then didn't fight the rest of the fight. That's why he lost. But his legs were shot. And then when he fought,
Cotto.
He fought the Puerto Rican.
Miguel Cotto.
His name slips me. Miguel Cotto. He couldn't move. He couldn't move on those knees of his. So unless he's had knee surgery and knee replacements or whatever.
We need to be the point. He's 45 now, and he hasn't fought for 6 years.
What's the point?
It makes no sense. None of this.
No, I don't know what's going on with the guy. I'm not up on what's going on with him. He was great when he was in shape. I mean, he was great to watch. He had a good punch. I love it when he came back and he won the junior middleweight title and then the middleweight title.
After he beat Paul Williams. That knockout against Paul Williams, that was brutal.
It was. That was a real bad knockout. And God, poor Paul Williams, right? What happened to him?
Crazy.
Yeah, but this is a bad move on Martinez's part. I don't know why he's doing it. Maybe he needs the money. I have no idea why he's doing such.
I mean, he lives in nice sunny Spain. He's got a quiet life. He must be strapped for cash. Anyway, in other news,
he was doing films, wasn't he?
I don't know much about him. I'm not sure. I think he might have done it.
Yeah, I think he started to do some films and stuff and whatnot. I don't know what is prompting this. I have no idea. I don't know what's going on down there with him. But I just wish him well. That's all. I just hope he doesn't get hurt.
I remember when he fought in England in 2001, he beat a little-known man by the name of Richard Williams. You probably don't remember.
Say that again?
He beat a British guy called Richard Williams for the IBO light middleweight title.
I don't think I saw that one.
Right, we'll move on. Dillian, this article's taken from Boxing News. It's 2 days out of date. Dillian White against Alexander Povetkin. It says here, negotiations are close to being done. I like this fight.
I like it too. I think we discussed this before. I think it's a great fight. I think White needs, to fight more. I think this is a good match. Depending on which Povetkin comes in here, it should be a good one.
If Michael Hunter turns up, I think White will have too much.
Yeah, I think so too.
I think Povetkin is a little bit shocked to what he was. You can see he's going down.
Yes, I would agree with you. But I don't forget, White has to train. He has to get in good shape again.
If he's not in shape, he'll lose. If he comes in terrible shape like he did last time, he's out of it. He'll get knocked out. Yeah. But what I'm saying is this fight will make or break his career and the pay-per-view. If he loses to Povetkin, he can no longer have pay-per-view fights in England. In order to maintain that pay-per-view status, he has to beat Povetkin, in as good a fashion to what Joshua did. A point to win isn't going to be enough.
I agree. I think he needs to have a dramatic win here, and that's that. And so
If,
I'm saying he can't underestimate Povetkin either.
but
Povetkin's a
in
good
my opinion,
boxer.
he
He
should
has
have
power.
chosen Michael Hunter. Michael Hunter would have been an even tougher fight. I believe Hunter would have beaten White. Would beat White.
Well, yeah, that you can make a case for that based upon his output and whatnot. But
I mean,
all
if
I'm saying is White better be in shape, man.
right, let me look what else we got. A few more things, then we can move on. Let me have a look. It's going down the list again to see what else there is. There's Manuel Char news, but we don't need to go there. There's actually an article here that he posted, but I don't think we need to spend any more time discussing him.
Nah.
We go
If
down.
he fights, then we could discuss him. Other than that, who cares? Now, the interesting thing here I wanted to talk about, if it's okay with you, is about Callum Smith and GGG
Yeah.
possibly matching with Canelo on May 4th, because that's his weekend. And I think the time is up for Canelo where he can cherry pick who he's boxing. He's got to fight somebody. He's got to fight somebody that's, either at 160 or 168. I don't know if he could make 160 again. GGG would have to move up, or he'd have to go for Callum Smith, because this whole Japanese Ryota fight has fell out. So I think the zone needs to make a fight that's going to sell, that's going to, warrant the $32 million he's been getting for each fight. So I think they want to get him with GGG again. I wouldn't be surprised if he takes GGG for May. What do you think?
I don't think he beats Canelo at all. Based on his last performance was awful. I think Canelo will have too much for him.
You thought his performance was awful?
Callum Smith, yeah. I thought he had enough
Callum
tonight,
Smith.
and John Ryder upped his game. Callum Smith, he took his eye off the ball. John Ryder, no disrespect to Ryder, he should be. Carry on.
I was thinking, I agree with that, but I was thinking maybe Smith didn't want to look as good as he could have, because maybe in the back of his mind he's thinking GGG won't fight me. But no, I can't take anything away from Ryder. Ryder put up a good
he
fight.
put on a great performance, but that's what happens if you fight a guy whose level's above you, you're going to do better. But Smith, he should have put this guy away. You can't be fighting people like John Ryder and expect people to take you seriously if you want to fight Canelo. I'm sorry, it doesn't work like that. Maybe I'm being too harsh.
Oh, no, I don't think you have to win in a dramatic fashion if you want to get a good title shot. But I just had the suspicion watching the fight. Now, don't forget, he was small. John Ryder's it's smaller in stature, and he was getting underneath. He was moving. He was making it difficult for Smith. And so, the old saying, styles make fights. But I was also thinking maybe he wanted to get on, into the mix for this May 4th. Now, GGG has a fight he pushed back to April, a defense that he has of his title. But if the other fight comes in, he may just give up his title and fight at 168 to fight with Canelo, or maybe they could meet at 165. I don't think Canelo's going to be able to get back down to 160. What do you think?
Yeah, I think Canelo is a middleweight. He's not a super middleweight. He should either stay at middleweight or one or the other. But the other problem is what's confusing is that Canelo needs to decide what weight he is for a start. That would help everyone. We know he's not a light heavyweight. What is he?
No, he doesn't want to stay at light heavyweight. That's for sure. But the question is whether he'll go to 168 or 160. I'm looking like at a catch weight if he fights GGG or Callum Smith at 165, whatever. But the days for catch weights for him are over. He could easily fight at 168. I believe he'd be fine at 168. Or what? He doesn't need a catch weight anymore. He could fight at 168. The public, this catch weight nonsense is over with for him, I believe. Did they have a catch weight for him at 175? I don't think so, right?
I'm not sure. You see,
I don't think when he fought Canelo, he had a catch weight. In any case, look out for what's going to happen on May 4th, because Canelo has to fight. It's his contract. Who is he going to fight? Is he going to fight Smith? Is he going to fight GGG? Who the hell is this guy going to fight?
I think the truth should be said. Smith needs to move up. He can't continue fighting at the weight he's at. I mean, he needs to move up to light heavyweight. He's not a super middleweight any longer. His body can't take it. He killed himself to make the weight in that fight.
Well, then he has to do what he has to do. But he may be looking at trying to get this fight. I think the logical thing is going to happen here. I think GGG is going to fight him again in May. You know, because they don't want to take a chance of GGG losing to anybody.
Well, I don't want to see
That
Triple
makes
G
sense,
giving a
right?
rematch.
Because if he
You know,
loses-
we don't need to see a third fight. We know who the better fighter is.
I don't know about that. I would disagree with you. I thought that he outlanded him in that fight. He had him going in the 9th round. He had him on his heels. Yeah, he took a couple of hard shots and puffed up, but he still out-jabbed him. He still out-punched him. He almost wrecked him in the 9th or 10th round. He almost had him going. He cut Canelo. Go back and look at that fight again. You know, he put up a very good fight. And I don't think Canelo actually won that fight. I would have been happy with the draw. But on paper, on statistics, no way.
There is one classic fight we're going to.
That's my opinion, and that's.
Before we move on to our classic fight, which will be the final thing, there must be. Is there anything else that's taken your fancy that you've seen in the news today, or anything that you want to talk about before we move on to our final fight?
No, nothing. You know, we have the big one coming up. You know, at the end of this month, and you know.
Oh, yeah, we've got the Feigenbutz fight, but I want to quickly discuss a fight now.
Wait, what did you say? Which one?
This is Tim Witherspoon against James Bone Crusher Smith. This was for the WBA title, and James Bone Crusher Smith knocks out Tim Witherspoon in a round to win the title. Do you remember this fight?
I do. Oh my God! I expected Witherspoon to win.
So, going into this fight, what was the equivalent of? Who would James Bone Crusher Smith be the equivalent of today?
I would say like one of the bigger guys, like Joe Joyce. I would say Joe Joyce. I think throws more punches than Bone Crusher, but size-wise and style-wise, they were similar. You know what I'm saying? They were pretty similar.
So really, James Bone Crusher Smith winning was a very big shot, wasn't it?
Well, let's look at it this way. It was at the time, but if you look at his record of who he fought, he came out, and he came up and he was fighting, a lot of the lower level guys, but he got up there and he fought Larry Holmes in what? Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. In his 15th fight, he fights Larry Holmes, and he loses by a split decision.
Jesus.
Okay? A split decision. And Tim Witherspoon used to be one of Muhammad Ali's sparring partners.
Really good. But
that's where he got the name Terrible Tim Witherspoon.
Looking at the record of James Witherspoon, his record is pretty awful. Going into that fight, he lost his first ever fight by knockout. Then he beat Frank Bruno, I don't know how. Then he lost to Larry Holmes. Then he lost to Tony Tubbs, beat Revolta, lost to Tim Witherspoon. And then he beat Marvis Fraser, Mike Weaver. Then he beats Witherspoon a year later. That's crazy in one round. And then his first defense, he loses to Mike Tyson.
But look at this. Yeah, and he held Mike Tyson a lot. They called him the body hugger in that fight, the body hugger rather than the bone crusher. They called him the bone hugger. The announcers were calling him the boner. But take a look at this guy. This guy, look at all the fights he had and all the fighters that were fighting each other at the time,
Oh, yeah.
that were giving each other a hard time while the champion was fighting all the rest of them. They all came up to fight for the championship. But like today, they don't do it like this. You know, it's like this guy fought 44 fights. I mean, no, more than 44 fights. He fought, how many fights here? I don't know, 44, lost 17, drew 1. That's a lot of fights. Okay? And coming up, you know, he fought Larry Holmes like after what, 15 fights?
Crazy. But looking at him, he was very limited, wasn't he? You know, to say the least.
He was. He had a good punch, though. So the thing was, he wasn't a walkover. You didn't walk over the guy, right? The guys he lost to were like Ruddock, Mike Tyson. You know, he lost the decision to Tyson. You know, he lost a KO by Ruddock. And it depended, you know, on who he was fighting. He lost the decision to Marvis Frazier.
But we also have to say that James Crusher Smith was, you know, he was a tough man. You know, fortunate to win a world title, in my opinion. But you look at the WBA champions of the 80s, that belt was like a revolving door of champions.
Yes. But they fought each other. That's the point. They kept fighting each other. You know, you started to get Tommy Morrison in on that, right? That time. And he was fighting. And all of those guys. I mean, you never knew who was going to beat who in those fights.
But these days, you know who's going to win most of the time, don't you?
Exactly. You know,
I think boxing is more. Boxing is a lot more fixed in terms of fights now, isn't it, than what it used to be? You know, you look at a roster of a fight card, and you can be pretty sure 88% of the time you make a prediction you're going to be right. Whereas in those days, I mean, unfortunately, I didn't follow boxing closely then. You know, my knowledge of the 80s is pretty lacking. I'll say that, but as we're in 2020, my fight knowledge doesn't have to be that great for the past, does it? Particularly.
Well, that was the deal. There was a lot of boxing going on, and a lot of these guys fighting each other. And you had HBO, you had Showtime, and you had the USA Network, and you had ESPN. All of them were showing these fights back then. You know, everybody had boxing going on. And then you had NBC, CBS still, it was ABC. They were still showing fights on regular TV as well. And you got to see all these guys, and they would just match up with everybody. Nobody was ducking anybody. That was the thing. You know, Muhammad Ali fought everybody. Larry Holmes fought everybody. Tyson was fighting everybody. And that's the way it was. And there was no avoiding it. That's the way it was.
Right. We'll go on to our final thing. Caleb Plant will be defending his IBF Super middleweight bout against Vincent Feigenbutz. Vincent Feigenbutz is a former WBA interim champion, a former and a current global boxing union world super middleweight champion, which doesn't mean anything. So this is for the IBF belt. I believe this is a fight. I mean, have you ever seen Feigenbutz fight?
No. Well, actually, I looked at some footage of him. He's not bad, but I think Caleb Plant is really hitting his stride right now.
Oh yeah,
and
he's a killer.
Well, he's an excellent boxer, not just a puncher, but he's also an excellent boxer. He can pick you apart. He has a very good defense, and excuse me, it's a hometown fight, and that's always distracting. You know, how many times have we seen guys lose in front of their hometown, you know, and not do well? And he's having this fight in Nashville, and hopefully he's focused on this. Now that would be a good fight. 168 if Canelo fought Plant. What?
Caleb Plant is a man full of demons and bad luck. His life has had nothing but, you know, pain and misery in it. Having his mum shot dead, yes. Having his daughter die, you know, he's had nothing but pain and misery. I think this keeps him going. I think, you know, the boxing, I think he will destroy Feigenbutz in 6 or 7 rounds. He will smash his head off. Feigenbutz is a upper European level fighter. He's not world level at all.
Well, here's the deal about Caleb. What impressed me about him was how he was able to block it out.
I don't know how he did it.
And perform. That's a pro. A professional is being able to perform regardless of the conditions. That's what a professional is.
He is a man's man. He is a man who I've never seen him laugh in interviews. He's always serious. You know, he looks like he looks like he wants to cave. He wants to kill Feigenbutz. That's the sort of look he has. He almost reminds me of a Kelly Pavlik kind of type character.
Well, you know, the guy he's fighting is a good puncher. He's a good puncher, but he's slower and he's wide. He punches wide. So, and he's slower. So Caleb should be able to bust him up. The guy's strong, though.
But this guy's only 24. Careful. He's only 24, this guy. He's been around 6, 7 years.
Yeah. He's heavy-handed, but you're dealing with a guy here that can move and is also very strong. I think Caleb is going to bust him up and then take him out by the 7th.
I have to be honest. I'd like to see him fight. Eubank Jr. I think he'd beat Eubank Jr. But I don't think Caleb Plant. The way he fights and the way he is as a person. I don't think he will be long for this world. And I mean that in the nicest possible way as I can. I think he has a
fight.
Yeah, I think he has a self-destructive personality, and he has a lot of demons. I just don't think. Do you understand what I mean? He'll end up like a Kelly Pavlik guy.
Well, Kelly Pavlik was an alcoholic.
Yeah,
that was Kelly's problem, and that's what did him in. And after he lost to Hopkins, mentally he was never the same, and that was his problem. He never dealt with his alcoholism. And I don't think becoming famous and winning the title, I think that was bad in the sense because he partied, you know.
I think Caleb Plant only has his boxing. I think without his boxing, he would be dead. I firmly believe that with his record in life and the way he's, you know, I don't like to get into this, you know, but I'm just saying as speaking as I said.
I think he has character, you know. I think he has character.
He's got determination. And I think he can go on and unify title. But again, like I said, I don't think he will be at the very top for very long, you know?
Right. Well, I don't know. I want to see how he does in this fight. I admire the guy. I'm sorry that he's had to go through what he's gone through. But, you know, sometimes those things, if you pull through them, they increase the level of your character.
He is a real dark life Rocky. You know, he is to personify the story of what Rocky is about.
Well, I wish him luck, and I hope he doesn't. You know, I hope he doesn't take a turn downwards. I'm looking forward to seeing him fight, and I think he's going to win this fight. He just needs to remain focused.
Okay,
I'd
guys.
I'd like to see him fight Canelo.
Okay, stay on the line afterwards. We're going to stop the podcast. We'll be back for a podcast sometime next week.
All right, great. Thank you.
Bye, people.